Betrayal uncovered. The holding cell aboard the ESS Sentinel smelled of ozone and fear. Captain Alina Reyes stood motionless before the transparent barrier, studying the alien prisoner within. Commander Vrex of the Shateri Imperial Fleet sat perfectly still, his scaled skin shimmering under the harsh lights, 4 eyes blinking in an unsettling rhythm. "You've lost the war," Alina said, her voice level despite the rage quailing in her chest. "Your fleet is scattered. Your homeworld has signed the armistice. So tell me why you're still fighting." Vrex's mandibles clicked together, the Shateri equivalent of laughter. Humans, so confident in your victory, so blind to the truth. 6 months ago, the Shateri had launched a surprise attack on humanity's outer colonies. The war had been brutal and swift. Millions dead, entire settlements vaporized. Humanity had barely survived, pushing back the alien forces through sheer determination and sacrifice. Alina had lost her brother at New Titan. Her XO, Commander Park, had lost his entire family when the Shateri bombarded the Armstrong colony. The wounds were fresh, the hate justified. "I'm not here for your philosophical observations," Alina said. "I want to know why your battle group was targeting civilian research stations after your leadership surrendered." "Perhaps," Vrex said, leaning forward, "you should ask your own leaders that question." Alina's expression didn't change, but her pulse quickened. "Explain. You think we found your colonies by chance? Your defense protocols? Your fleet movements?" Vrex's outer eyes narrowed while his inner ones dilated. Amusement. "We had help. Human help." The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Alina had heard rumors, conspiracy theories about human traitors. Every war had them, but this felt different. "Names," she demanded. "Proof." "Captain Reyes," the alien commander said, her name sounding strange through his translator. "Why do you think I allowed myself to be captured?" Alina tensed. Behind her, the 2 Marines guarding the cell shifted their stance. "You didn't allow anything," she said. "Your ship was disabled. You were the only survivor." Convenient, wasn't it? Vrex's skin rippled with colors, a sign of intense emotion. "My ship. Alone. Systems failing at the precise moment your vessel appeared." Alina's mind raced. The encounter had been too easy. Intelligence had led them directly to Vrex's location, separated from the main Shateri forces. "You're saying you wanted to be caught. I'm saying there are factions within the Shateri who never wanted this war." Vrex stood, moving closer to the barrier. "And there are humans who worked very hard to ensure it happened." Commander Park entered the break, his face grim. "Captain, Admiral Donovan is requesting an update on the prisoner interrogation." Alina noticed how Vrex's body stiffened at the mention of Donovan's name. "Tell him it's ongoing," she replied, not taking her eyes off Vrex. After Park left, Vrex spoke again, voice lower. "The Admiral is most eager for my execution, I imagine." A chill ran down Alina's spine. "How do you know Donovan?" "I don't, but my commander did." "Ask yourself, Captain, how did humans develop pulse shield technology so quickly after our first attack? Technology that perfectly counters our weapons." The question had bothered many in the fleet. Humanity's rapid technological advancement had seemed miraculous, the only reason they'd survived the initial onslaught. "We adapted," Alina said, but doubt had taken root. "No," Vrex countered. "You were prepared. Someone gave your scientists a head start. Someone who knew our capabilities intimately. Why tell me this? Why not use this information to save yourself during the armistice negotiations?" Vrex's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Because those who betrayed you also betrayed us. This war was never meant to end with your extinction or ours. It was meant to continue indefinitely, profitable for some, useful for others." Alina's comm unit buzzed. "Admiral Donovan again." She ignored it. "You have proof of this?" she asked. "Coordinates," Vrex said. "A neutral system. An asteroid facility where your traitors and ours still meet, planning the next phase. You expect me to trust you. I expect you to verify. Vrex replied. Go to these coordinates. See for yourself. Then decide. Elena's calm buzzed more insistently. She silenced it completely. Give me the coordinates. Vrex recited a string of numbers and stellar references. Elena committed them to memory. If you're lying. I have no reason to lie, Captain Reyes. My clan was decimated in this war. My clutch siblings died on worlds I was ordered to attack. Worlds I was told were military targets. His color shifted to a deep blue. They were refugee colonies. The door to the brig slid open. Admiral Donovan himself strode in, flanked by 4 security officers Elena didn't recognize. Captain Reyes, Donovan said, his voice sharp. You're relieved of duty effective immediately. Elena stared at her commanding officer, the man who had mentored her, who had fast-tracked her promotion after her heroics at the Battle of Europa. Sir, with respect, on what grounds? Insubordination. Failure to comply with direct orders. Donovan's steel-gray eyes revealed nothing. The prisoner was to be transferred to Central Command 2 hours ago. I wasn't informed of any transfer order, Elena said, hand instinctively moving toward her sidearm. Stand down, Captain, Donovan warned. Security will escort you to your quarters while we investigate potential Shatari mental influence. Elena looked at Vrex, who had retreated to the back of his cell. His skin had turned ashen. Fear. Sir, the prisoner has critical intelligence. That's enough, Captain. Donovan nodded to the security team. Take her weapon and escort her out. As one of the officers approached, Elena noticed something odd. A small insignia on his uniform collar. Not standard Earth fleet. Her training kicked in before her conscious mind could process what was happening. She stepped back, drew her weapon, and fired in one fluid motion. The officer dropped, stunned. Captain Reyes. Donovan shouted, stand down immediately. But Elena had seen it now. The same insignia, barely noticeable, on Donovan's own uniform. A stylized Nova with 3 stars. Commander Park, she called into her comm, backing toward the cell controls. Security breach in the brig. Unknown personnel with the Admiral. The remaining security officers drew their weapons, but hesitated when Park's voice came through the ship's comm system. All hands, security alert. Unknown intruders reported aboard. This is not a drill. Donovan's face contorted with rage. You have no idea what you're doing, Reyes. I think I do, sir. She reached the cell controls and pressed the emergency release. The barrier holding Vrex disappeared. You're working with them. You have been all along. Chaos erupted. Alarms blared. The ship's genuine security forces would be arriving any second. Donovan and his false officers fired, forcing Elena to take cover behind a console. Vrex, she shouted over the gunfire. If you're telling the truth, now's the time to prove it. The Shatari commander didn't hesitate. He lunged from his cell, his species' natural strength allowing him to tackle one of the false officers. Elena fired again, catching another officer in the chest. Park arrived with the Marine detail, and the tide quickly turned. Donovan, seeing his position collapsing, backed toward the exit. This isn't over, Reyes. You have no idea what forces you're challenging. A Marine's shot grazed his shoulder, but Donovan managed to escape through the doorway, sealing it behind him. Park helped Elena to her feet. Captain, what the hell is happening? Elena looked at Vrex, who was being covered by the Marines, but had made no hostile moves. The war, she said, was just the beginning. We've been betrayed, Commander, by our own people. As emergency protocols engaged throughout the ship, Elena knew there was no going back. Donovan would brand her a traitor, claim she had fallen under alien influence. Standard procedure would be to quarantine the ship and remove her from command. She had minutes, perhaps hours, to act. Commander Park, lock down the ship. No communications in or out without my authorization. and prepare a secure channel to General Santos at the Mars Command. Captain, Park said hesitantly, that's mutiny. No, Elena replied, looking at the insignia she'd torn from one of the fallen false officers. This is mutiny. What I'm doing is trying to save what's left of humanity from the real enemy. She turned to Vrex. Those coordinates better be accurate. The alien commander nodded solemnly. They are, but you'll need more than this ship and its crew to face what awaits you there. One problem at a time, Elena said, already formulating her next move. First, we need to gather evidence. Then, we hunt down every last one of the traitors, human and Chitauri alike. As the Sentinel systems locked down around them, Elena knew she was taking her first steps on a path from which there could be no return. The war she had fought for 3 years had been a lie. The peace they had sacrificed so much to achieve, an illusion. The real battle was just beginning. The Rogue Squadron. The message from General Santos was brief. You're on your own, Elena. Official channels compromised. Trust no one above colonel rank. Evidence insufficient for action against Donovan. Will delay pursuit 48 hours. After that, you're designated rogue. Good hunting. Elena closed the encrypted communication and looked around the Sentinel's war room. The faces staring back at her reflected her own grim determination. Commander Park, Lieutenant Keller, Chief Engineer Rosario, and 15 other officers and crew who had chosen to stay after she'd offered everyone the chance to disembark at the Ganymede outpost. That's it, she said. No official support. Anyone who wants to reconsider. We're past that point, Captain, Park interrupted. We're all in. Elena nodded, grateful for their loyalty, but heavy with the responsibility. Then let's get to work. Vrex, show us what we're up against. The Chitauri commander, still under guard but now treated as a reluctant ally, activated the holographic display. The facility is here, in the Tau Ceti neutral zone, he said, highlighting an asteroid belt at the edge of a binary star system. Originally a mining operation, now converted to a research and meeting facility, heavily defended with both human and Chitauri technology. How many personnel? Lieutenant Keller asked, her tactical mind already working. Variable. Between 30 and 100, depending on scheduled meetings. A mix of human and Chitauri collaborators, plus security forces. Elena studied the rotating hologram. And you're certain Donovan will be there. The next scheduled gathering is in 3 days, Vrex confirmed. All high-level conspirators attend quarterly assessments. Admiral Donovan rarely misses them. The Sentinel is too recognizable, Park said. We need something else. Elena smiled for the first time in days. Actually, I have an idea about that. Chief Rosario, set course for Titan Station. Titan. Rosario looked surprised. That's deep in Alliance territory. We'll be detected. Not if we use the approach vector I'm sending to your console. Elena transmitted the classified coordinates, a little gift from General Santos. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Vrex approached Elena, his guards tensing. Your plan has merit, Captain, he said quietly. But even if you succeed in gathering evidence, what then? The conspiracy reaches into the highest levels of both our governments. Elena's eyes hardened. Then we tear those governments down and build them anew. Vrex's mandibles clicked, that unsettling laugh. Perhaps there is hope for our species after all. Titan Station hung in the shadow of Saturn, its massive rings providing both camouflage and protective cover. Unlike the gleaming military installations closer to Earth, Titan Station was all sharp angles and protruding sensor arrays, a research facility, not a battle station. Verification code accepted. The station's automated systems announced as the Sentinel approached under cloak. Welcome back, Admiral Donovan. Park raised an eyebrow at Elena, who shrugged. Santos came through with more than just an approach vector. The Sentinel docked in a hidden bay deep within the station's research sector. As the airlock cycled, Elena addressed her boarding team. Remember, we're here for the prototype only. No engagement with station personnel unless absolutely necessary. This is still an Alliance facility with innocent people aboard. The team moved through the deserted corridors, following the schematic Santos had provided. Titan Station's graveyard shift meant minimal personnel, and Donovan's security codes gave them access to areas that would normally be heavily guarded. "This is it," Alina said as they reached a sealed laboratory door. "Rosario, you're up." The chief engineer overrode the final security protocols, and the doors slid open to reveal their prize. A sleek, predatory vessel unlike any in the Alliance fleet. Smaller than a destroyer but larger than a scout ship, its hull was covered in a material that seemed to drink in the light. "The ESV Phantom," Rosario whispered reverently. "Experimental stealth vessel, quantum cloaking technology, advanced weapons systems, and modified Shatari drive tech. It can run silent for weeks. And it's perfect for our mission," Alina said. "Get it prepped for launch. We have less than an hour before the security systems reset." As her team worked, Alina noticed Vrex studying the ship with unnerving intensity. "Something wrong?" she asked. "This technology," he said. "Some of it is based on research from my homeworld. Research that was supposedly destroyed when your forces bombarded our scientific district." Alina frowned. "Another piece of the puzzle." "A large piece," Vrex agreed. "This vessel should not exist. Not yet. Not unless Donovan and his conspirators had access to your research before the war even started," she finished. The implications were staggering. The conspiracy hadn't just prolonged the war, it might have started it. "Captain," Park called from the Phantom's open hatch. "We're ready." As they boarded the prototype vessel, Alina sent one final message to the Sentinel's acting captain. "Proceed to rendezvous coordinates. Maintain communications blackout. If we're not back in 7 days, get the evidence we already have to General Santos." The Phantom detached from Titan Station silently, its revolutionary propulsion system barely registering on even the station's advanced sensors. As they cleared Saturn's rings, Alina allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. For the first time since this began, they had the advantage of surprise. The hunters had just become the hunted. The spider's web. The Nexus trading hub floated at the convergence of 3 major space lanes, a massive structure of interconnected rings, and docking arms constantly swarming with vessels from a dozen species. Built shortly after first contact with the Shatari, it had been intended as a symbol of peaceful cooperation. Now Alina recognized it for what it truly was: neutral ground where conspirators could meet without raising suspicion. "Docking complete," Park announced from the pilot station. "Our credentials passed without question." "Donovan's codes continue to be useful," Alina said. "Let's not waste the opportunity." The mission plan was simple on paper: infiltrate the hub, access the secure communications center, plant Rosario's specialized decryption package, and extract without detection. The data would be transmitted to the Phantom automatically, giving them hard evidence of the conspiracy and, hopefully, the full list of traitors. Alina selected her ground team with care. Herself, Lieutenant Keller for security, Rosario for technical expertise, and controversially, Vrex. "I still think this is a mistake," Park said as Alina prepared to disembark. "We can't trust him." "I don't trust him," Alina replied, checking her concealed sidearm. "But he knows the Shatari conspirators on site. We don't." The Nexus Hub's main concourse was a cacophony of sounds, smells, and movement. Traitors haggled over goods from across the galaxy. Security drones hovered overhead, their sensors sweeping continuously. Alina led her team through the crowd, their nondescript civilian clothing providing adequate cover. "The communication center is 3 levels up," Rosario murmured, consulting the hub schematic on his datapad. "Heavy security." "Expected," Alina replied. "Stick to the plan." They took separate lifts to avoid suspicion, regrouping in a maintenance corridor 1 level below their target. As Keller hacked the service door, Vrex suddenly tensed. Problem? Elena asked, hand moving to her weapon. The security patrol pattern has changed, he said, his outer eyes scanning rapidly. More guards, different insignia. Elena followed his gaze. The security personnel weren't wearing standard Nexus uniforms. Instead, they bore the same Nova and Stars emblem she'd seen on Donovan's collar. They know we're here, she realized. Or at least they're expecting trouble. Rosario swore softly. Abort. Elena considered their options. Retreat meant losing their best chance at evidence. Proceeding meant walking into what was likely a trap. We adjust, she decided. New plan. Keller, create a distraction in the commercial sector. Something nonviolent but attention-grabbing. Rosario, you're still on the decryption package. Vrex, you're with me. And what will you be doing, Captain? Keller asked. Elena's expression hardened, finding out why they're expecting us. The private docking bay was guarded by 4 security personnel. 2 human, 2 Shateri. Elena observed them from a maintenance grate. Vrex crouched uncomfortably beside her. That shuttle, Vrex whispered, indicating an elegant vessel with diplomatic markings. It belongs to Trade Minister Shelvex. He was my commander's primary contact. And who's the human? Elena asked, focusing on a tall, silver-haired woman in an expensive business suit disembarking from the shuttle. I don't know her, Vrex admitted, but her presence with Shelvex suggests she's high in your hierarchy. Elena's blood ran cold as recognition dawned. That's Undersecretary Elizabeth Chen. She oversees all Alliance defense contracts. The pieces were falling into place. Defense contractors profiting from prolonged war. Military leadership maintaining power. Alien collaborators gaining technology and resources. Her comm unit vibrated. Keller's distraction was starting. Moments later, alarms blared across the hub. Most of the security team rushed toward the commercial sector, leaving only 1 guard at the private bay. Now, Elena said, moving quickly from their hiding place. She approached the remaining guard with confidence, Vrex following a step behind. Credentials, the guard demanded, hand resting on his weapon. Elena smiled and raised her hand slightly. I don't think that will be necessary. Before the guard could react, Vrex moved with startling speed, his powerful arms locking around the human in a submission hold that rendered him unconscious in seconds. Efficient, Elena commented as they dragged the guard out of sight. We Shateri are not all warriors, Vrex said, but we all learn to defend ourselves. They approached the shuttle, Elena's stolen security card granting them access. Inside, the vessel was luxuriously appointed, more like a corporate boardroom than a diplomatic transport. The communications console, Vrex said, pointing. It will have records of their transmissions. Elena worked quickly, downloading everything while Vrex stood guard. She was nearly finished when her comm crackled urgently. Captain, Rosario's voice was tight with stress. It's a setup. They're jamming communications and... The transmission cut off abruptly. We need to move, Elena said, securing the data drive. Now. They exited the shuttle to find the docking bay sealed and filling with armed security forces. At their center stood Admiral Donovan himself, looking supremely confident. Captain Reyes, he called out, almost genially. You've led me on quite a chase. Admiral, Elena replied coolly. Or should I address you by whatever rank you hold in this conspiracy? Donovan smiled thinly. Always direct. It's why I selected you for command, you know. That unflinching determination. A pity you couldn't see the bigger picture. I see it clearly, Elena said. You orchestrated a war for profit and power. For survival, Donovan corrected. Humanity's survival. Everything I've done has been to secure our future. By killing millions of your own people. Elena's voice cracked with rage. By working with the enemy. There are no enemies in this, only pieces on a board. Donovan sighed. The Shateri Empire was becoming too powerful, their technology outpacing ours. Given time, they would have overwhelmed us completely. So you started a controlled war, Elena realized, limited their expansion while stealing their technology, and accelerated human advancement by decades, Donovan added. The defensive systems that saved Earth, the FTL improvements, all from this arrangement, an arrangement built on betrayal and genocide. Elena said, "You're finished, Donovan. We have the evidence." The Admiral laughed. "Evidence? Who do you think would prosecute me?" "The Alliance Council. Half of them are with us. The military tribunal. I control them." His expression hardened. "You have no move left, Captain. Surrender the data, and I might let your crew live." Elena felt Vrex tense beside her, ready for what would likely be a suicidal last stand. She assessed their situation. Outnumbered, outgunned, cornered. But not outmaneuvered. Not yet. "You're right about one thing, Admiral," she said, her hand moving slowly to her comm unit. "I have no move left." She pressed the emergency signal. 3 rapid pulses. But I'm not the only player on the board. The docking bay doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris came Lieutenant Keller leading a mixed force of humans, and, unexpectedly, Shatari warriors. "What is this?" Donovan demanded as chaos erupted around them. Elena didn't wait to explain. She and Vrex used the confusion to fight their way toward Keller and the unexpected reinforcements. "Captain," Keller shouted over the gunfire. "This way." They retreated through the blasted doorway, their new allies providing covering fire. Elena glimpsed Donovan shouting orders, his face contorted with rage, before the smoke obscured him. The running battle through the hub's corridors was desperate and confused. Civilians scattered in terror. Security forces struggled to contain the situation. Through it all, Elena focused solely on reaching the Phantom. When they finally burst onto their docking platform, she turned to Keller. "Explain the Shatari reinforcements." "Not mine," Keller said, gesturing to a tall, elegant Shatari female in ceremonial armor. "Hers." The Shatari stepped forward, mandibles arranged in what Elena had learned was a formal greeting. "Captain Reyes, I am Commander Tholvek of the Opposition Fleet." "Opposition," Elena repeated. "What your people might call resistance," Tholvek explained. "Against both the Imperial leadership and those like Shelvex who would betray our people for power." "She saved us," Rosario added, joining them with a bloodied arm. Her people intercepted the trapped communications. They'd been watching the conspirators too. Elena looked from Thalvek to Vrex, who seemed equally surprised. "We need to go," Park called from the Phantom's hatch. "Hub security is regrouping." Elena made a split-second decision. "Commander Tholvek, we have evidence that could expose this conspiracy to both our peoples. Will you help us use it?" The Shatari commander's inner eyes fixed on Elena with startling intensity. "Captain Rice, that is why I am here." As they boarded the Phantom, emergency klaxons wailing behind them, Elena knew they had just changed the game. They weren't just fugitives anymore. They were the vanguard of a revolution. The wolves gather. The abandoned mining colony on Deimos 9 had once been a thriving industrial outpost. Now it served as the perfect rendezvous point, remote, defensible, and equipped with communication arrays powerful enough to reach both human and Shatari space. The Phantom settled onto the landing pad, its advanced systems scanning for any signs of pursuit. None were detected, but Elena knew that wouldn't last. Donovan would be marshaling his forces, calling in every favor, using every resource to hunt them down. Inside the colony's operations center, an unlikely war council had formed. Elena and her crew alongside Commander Tholvek and her Shatari resistance fighters. Former enemies united by a common threat. "The data is conclusive," Rosario announced, displaying his analysis on the central holodeble. "Communications, financial transfers, military orders, all linking back to a central organization they call Nova Ascendant. Their goal was perpetual controlled conflict," Elena explained, highlighting key documents. The war would never escalate to total destruction, but never truly end either. Both sides would be kept in a permanent state of militarization and technological development, at the cost of millions of lives, Park added grimly. Thalvek studied the evidence, her mandibles tight against her face, a sign of disgust in Shateri body language. The Imperial Council must see this, she said. Many opposed the war from the beginning, but were silenced or removed. With this evidence, we could force a true reckoning. The same applies to the Alliance Council, Elena agreed. But Donovan's influence runs deep. He'll try to intercept any transmission, discredit any messenger. Then we don't send a message, Vrex interjected. All eyes turned to him. We force a confrontation where the evidence can't be ignored or buried. What are you suggesting? Keller asked. The Nova Ascendant leadership meets regularly at the asteroid facility. Vrex reminded them. 3 days from now, they gather again. If we could capture them together, with the evidence, a direct assault would be suicide, Park objected. They'll have that place fortified beyond anything we can handle. Elena studied the asteroid facility schematics they had pieced together from various sources. An idea began to form, audacious, possibly insane, but with just enough chance of success to be worth considering. Not an assault, she said slowly. An infiltration, followed by a very specific kind of trap. As she outlined her plan, she saw the expressions around the table shift from skepticism to grim determination. It would require perfect coordination between human and Shateri forces, exploiting the unique capabilities of both. This could work, Thalvek said finally, but we need more than just the people in this room. I might have a solution for that, Elena replied. She activated a secure channel on her personal comm unit, the one General Santos had given her before they parted ways. To her relief, the general answered promptly. I was beginning to think you were dead, Reyes. Not yet, sir, Elena said. But I need to know where you stand now. We have the evidence, more than we ever expected, and a plan to expose the whole conspiracy. But we need support. There was a long pause before Santos replied. Half the Admiralty is compromised, Elena. The other half is under surveillance. I've managed to secure a small task force, 4 ships with loyal crews. But that's all I can offer officially. And unofficially. Unofficially, Santos said, his voice hardening. I know at least 24 ship captains who would follow you into a black hole if you told them it would save the Alliance. Good people who lost everything in this war and want answers. Elena exchanged glances with Park. It wasn't a fleet, but it might be enough. Give me their secure channels, she said, and prepare your task force for immediate deployment to these coordinates. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Thalvek's resistance ships began arriving one by one, slipping past both Alliance and Imperial patrols. Santos' loyal captains made similar journeys, bringing their vessels to the gathering point through circuitous routes to avoid detection. Elena worked tirelessly, coordinating the disparate forces, smoothing tensions between former enemies, and refining their plan of attack. The makeshift fleet that assembled in the shadow of Deimos 9 was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human and Shateri vessels, side by side, united in purpose if not yet in trust. On the eve of the operation, Elena found a moment of quiet on the observation deck. The stars seemed colder somehow, the void between them darker. She had begun this journey seeking justice for the war's victims. Now she carried the weight of 2 civilizations on her shoulders. May I join you, Captain? Vrex asked from the doorway. Elena nodded. The Shateri commander had proven his loyalty repeatedly since their escape from the Nexus hub. Still, old habits died hard, and she found herself studying his movements with instinctive caution. Tomorrow will determine the fate of both our peoples, Vrex said, gazing out at the assembled fleet. It is not how I imagined this war would end. Is that what this is? Elena asked. The end of the war, or the beginning of a greater one, Vrex acknowledged. Nova Ascendant will not surrender their power easily. No, Elena agreed, but they've never faced what we're bringing to them now. She turned to face the Shateri directly. Why did you do it, Vrex? Why betray your own command to help us? Vrex was silent for a long moment, his outer eyes fixed on the stars while his inner eyes studied Elena. My clutch sister was a scientist, he said finally. She developed technology to help terraform dead worlds, to create life where none existed. When the war began, they took her research and perverted it into weapons. When she protested, they executed her for treason. His mandibles clicked softly, not in amusement, but in sorrow. I joined Imperial Intelligence to find the truth. When I discovered the conspiracy, I knew I would need an ally from your side, someone with the courage to face uncomfortable truths. And you chose me, Elena said. Why? Your battle record, Vrex replied simply. You fought fiercely, but never cruelly. You protected civilians, even Shateri civilians, when you could. You showed honor in a dishonorable war. Elena didn't know how to respond to that. Before she could formulate a reply, her comm unit signaled. Captain, Park's voice came through. General Santos has arrived with his task force. The fleet is complete. Acknowledged, Elena said. Call all command staff to the operations center. It's time for the final briefing. As they walked side by side through the corridors of the colony, Elena felt a strange sense of kinship with the alien beside her, born of shared purpose rather than shared biology, but no less real for that. Tomorrow they would confront the architects of so much suffering. Tomorrow they would change the course of history or die in the attempt. Either way, there would be no going back.